where we'll meet achieving women making a difference in our community. I'm Carolyn Bruna. Our guest is Karen Snyder, owner and lead consultant at Concordia Consulting. Welcome, Karen.
Well, thank you. Hi, Carolyn.
Hi, I am so glad to have you back again on the show because we're friends from National Speakers Association DC chapter, and you've been here in the past presenting aspects of women's business growth. And actually, I guess all women and men's business growth, actually.
Yeah.
Karen, I love today's topic, changing workplace and how working virtually can be the greatest or the worst thing for women. But before we get into that topic, please remind us how you started in the consulting field.
Well, I'm not even sure when the magic moment was that I started in the consulting field, but I used to do an awful lot of work as a trainer and in corporations doing corporate training. And from there, I would be asked from time to time if I did any coaching and if I could work with key executives. And once I started working with key executives as a coach, they asked me if I ever did any consulting. And I found that actually the work was all very entwined and it was a natural extension of each thing. So I suspect I've been consulting about 10 years, no, maybe even 15. It's been a long time, but I don't know that there was a magic moment where I said, let's shift this shingle over to this shingle. And I still continue to do all three.
Oh, okay. Well, that's great. Yes. But was Concordia Consulting your first business?
Well, no, I don't think so. My first business is I sold lemonade when I was about 5 on the street corner. I did not have much profit, but I had a good time and met lots of neighbors, and they did leave me some cash. And then I actually had another real business when I was in college at University of Virginia. I started a greeting cards business, and at that time, that was before Instagram and Facebook, and cards were a big deal. People sent a lot of cards they sent them to their parents, to their grandparents. They sent them for Valentine's. So I had developed cards unique to the University of Virginia that had messages about University of Virginia so that students could send them to their significant others, to their parents. And it was a fun little gig.
Oh, I love cards, and I'm getting back to them more now because everything's been online and I like sending them. But so sounds like you've been an entrepreneur for a long time. And I want to say that now I read your Concordia Consulting newsletters all the time, and I really enjoy them. And they set up scenarios that I think people could learn from.
Do you have a favorite?
Actually, I was remembering that one on resilience habits. And I think maybe people would find that information useful if you tell them how to find it.
Oh my gosh, I would love that. First of all, my newsletter, I love when people read my newsletter. It's a gift to me. And they can sign up for it on my website. And that information is www.karensnyder.com. And then there's a little box on the bottom right, and it says subscribe. And let me tell your listeners, your viewers, that if they choose to subscribe and they don't love it, it's fine. It's even faster to unsubscribe than to subscribe, but most people stay subscribed. And the result, it's little tidbits about the workplace and how small things can make a big difference in terms of your overall effectiveness at work, your promotability, your ability to be promoted at work, and how well you get along at work.
Actually, I like that about your ability to be promoted at work, because I think that is important for women, especially, to know. So that leads us to our topic, the changing workplace and how working virtually can be the greatest or the worst thing for women. So let's begin. How has the workplace changed today? And why are there so many fewer employees than there were 5 years ago?
It's a great question, an important question, because people don't realize that it's going on. And we're talking now about the United States, but it's going on across the United States. So I don't know about you, but this summer I went to the beach, and when I went to my favorite restaurant, first of all, I had a hard time getting a reservation. And when we finally got in, one of the dining rooms was shut and was right in the middle of the summer. And I was like, so I said to the staff, what happened? Why is one of the dining rooms shut? And they said, well, we don't have enough wait staff and we don't want to give people poor service. So we closed one of the dining rooms. Now, this was the busiest season at the beach in a very popular restaurant. But you cannot provide service without your wait staff. And then a couple months later, not even a couple months, more like a few weeks, I came home and I was in my local Target. And once again, I noticed I was waiting a long time to go through the checkout line, and the shelves didn't have any. The stock was down, and so again, there were not enough people to provide service. But it's not just the service industry, and that's an important distinction. We see the service industry; we're all impacted by the service industry. But I also went to my dentist, and my dentist told me was cleaning my teeth, and I love having him as my dentist and having him clean my teeth, but he typically had a hygienist. And I said, so where's the hygienist? Is she sick? Is she out? No, he can't keep enough hygienists. They're not. So that's a trained professional in a niche and unable to keep that staff. So you asked the question, why is this happening? Well, there are a whole lot of reasons that this is happening. One reason is because of changing demographics. I'm in a boomer, I'm of the baby boomer age. I'm at the tail end of it. And my friends all started staying home during COVID. And when the workplace started returning to work, they said, not me. I'm not going back. And I thought it was just happening to my friends, but no, it's happening nationally. Lots of people who stayed home because of COVID decided, I'm never going back. I'm never going to do that again. I'm done. And so they retired a few years early. And you think, okay, so what's 2-3 years for a few people? But 2 or 3 years compounded by the number of boomers is a huge number nationally of people who are not going to return to the workplace. And it's not like they'll return later or they'll return after they're not returning. They're done. So that's one segment of the workplace, and that's one trend, but that's not all. Another thing that is happening is the millennials who are very much in the workplace, they're earning a living. They aren't having as many babies. People are having fewer children, and you're thinking, well, okay, so they're not having many babies, but we didn't hire babies. It takes 18 years, but the generations have been having fewer babies for years. And now it is catching up with the workplace. Those people who weren't having babies 15, 20, 25 years ago, as families that used to have 5, 6 children who are now having 2 or no children at all, it's impacting the workplace as those people are not born and therefore not growing up. 2 more trends are happening. One is that as the boomers age, their loved ones age. People who are boomers, the tail end of the boomers, have elderly parents who are very elderly, 80s and 90s, and they're taking off to care for them. And they also have spouses and loved ones who need more care. So again, the aging population. And finally, one more trend, our immigration patterns have changed. And we are allowing fewer workers into the country, and thus, and that's across all segments. Of course, it has to do with picking produce, but it's also our database engineers and our highly technical people are not coming. So when you put all those things together, each one is drip, drip, drip. It compounds to mean that there are fewer employees in the workplace.
And this is an amazing change, these workplace changes, which leads us, I believe, to some new dynamics that you had mentioned to me that are not just here in America, but in Europe.
So yeah, the European out of office is, I'm away camping for the summer. Please call me back back in September. And in America, it's like, oh my gosh, I've left the office for 2 hours to have kidney transplant surgery. And you can reach me on my cell at any time. And literally, when we go to the doctor here, in high stress DC area, people literally, their phones up that say, please silence your phone, please take your phone. There's protocol in emergency rooms for real about people using their cell phones. And we have had a very different attitude about work in the United States. Always on, always connected.
Mhm.
And we are changing as a country. As I said, millennials are working, and while they are always connected, maybe perhaps to their device, they do not wish to always be working. Um, I'm going to share one little story with you. I have a friend who told me she had re-entered the workplace recently as an older worker. She had been off for about 20 years caring for her children, and she returned in a tech field. And she said, I can't even believe it. People text me at all hours of the day and night, and they email me at all hours of the day and night. And I said, well, Lori, that's what's going on now. And she said, well, I can't take it. Well, she's not alone. There is a shift saying, enough, stop. I do not want to work this many hours, and I'm looking for a kinder, gentler workplace and work style.
And I agree with this as a baby boomer myself, and maybe more to the other end of it than you, Karen. I definitely don't want to work the 24 hours a day, and I prefer the European model. So I'm glad we're doing that. But or at least we're cognizant of it. I'm not sure if we're really doing it.
I was about to, I'd say, I think there's a new awareness,
Mhm.
but I think change takes time.
Of course, of course.
And I don't think, I think, I know that there's an awareness. I don't know that we've really shifted in any way yet to that European beautiful model.
Yeah, yeah, no, I do agree. Right, right. Well, we're talking about shifting and this awareness, and so the changing workplace that we're talking about, our topic for women. What's the how can the workplace be positive for women?
Well, these changes are good for both men and women. And
Mm,
that what it means is that there's more opportunity. I talked about all those baby boomers that said, I'm not coming back to work. Many of them were in high level positions because they were toward the end of their career. And that creates more opportunities. Those slots are open. Managers are retiring. And so those are opportunities for both men and women. But of course, if you're a woman and you are in the workplace, there should be more openings and more movement than there had been previously. So anytime there's more movement and opportunity, raise your hand and say, hey, I'm ready. And one of the things I want to advise women about, there's been a lot of research about the difference between men and women and how they approach work, and especially how they approach interviews. We know that when a woman sees the qualifications for a job, unless she thinks that she has actual experience doing all the things that are listed on that job, she's unlikely to apply for the job, or in higher level positions to throw her ring in the hat, or to even say to someone in her organization, I'm ready for that opportunity.
mhm.
The
You know, I
con
agree with that. I just have to say to you, I read that same thing as well. Yeah, definitely.
so the converse for men is that if men see a listing of 10 different things that requirements for a job and say they can do two of them, they will say, I am ready. I am ready to go. And if you ask them about that, they'll say, well, I'll learn the other eight on the job. Give me the job. I'll show you I can learn it.
Mhm,
And what I want to tell you, the women viewers on your show, is let's be more like the men. We can
mhm.
learn on the job too. We already do all the time. And let's not expect to be perfect and know how to do something before we say, I have transferable skills. I'm sure I can do this.
Yeah. Can we add just one or two things that perhaps we're out of time, but basically I'd like to add how can this changing workplace be a negative for women? Just give us one or two things before we break.
Well, one of the ways that it can be negative is, and we're going to talk about this more after the break, because of this hybrid work environment, that can be both positive or negative for women.
Yeah.
And we'll explore how that can be both after our break.
Oh, great. Thank you. Will do. This is very important and exciting for me and information. So we'll break for a short public service announcement and we'll return with Karen telling us more about how employers as well can retain their workers.
I've run this place for 20 years, but I still need to prove that I'm more than what you see on paper.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Karen Snyder, owner and lead consultant at Concordia Consulting. And we've been talking about the changing workplace and its ramifications for women. First half, actually, we spoke about some of the positives of the changing workplace for women. And now we're getting into the negatives for women and then how employers can attract and retain employees and actually how the employees themselves can affect some of this change as well. So Karen, hi there. Let's talk about the negatives of the changing workplace for women.
Right. So before the break, we talked about some of the positives, which is when now there are so many more jobs that can be done remotely or can be done with a hybrid. And predominantly women are the caregivers. Mm-hmm. And that ability to maybe work one day from home or to be able to come in a little bit later or to work virtually or to take some of the meetings virtually, that can be extraordinarily helpful to women. I know one really super powerful woman. She is the chairwoman of the board of a major Fortune 500 company. And she has a board she keeps in the back of her car so that she can conduct a board meeting from her car if necessary. So these are advancements and positives for everybody, but especially for women who try to be everywhere and to everyone to, be everything to everybody. But that can be negative too. So let's talk about how some of those things can be problematic for women.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I agree that everything for everybody is definitely a negative. Sure.
Exactly. So one of the ways that it can be negative for women is just sheer burnout. So without the boundaries of now I'm at work and now I'm at home, women are trying to do both jobs, wear numerous hats all day, every day. And the exhaustion and the mental health can become overwhelming. And of course, that's terrible for women's careers, but more importantly, for their whole lives and their balance and their health. So that's one way it can be negative. Another way that it can be negative is if women choose to not come into the office. Many offices now have a hybrid situation where all employees get to decide how many days they're going to come into their office. And too many women and men can be making this choice too. If they decide not to come in, they lose exposure to their CEO, to their director. That face-to-face contact, that's where the informal networking happens. That's where the relationship building happens. And so disproportionately, women are choosing to stay home more and work from home more, and their valuable work and expertise or skills are not going to get the attention and get the promotion that their expertise deserves and their hard work deserves. Yeah. So I caution women to, if they choose that route, and isn't it wonderful that all of us have a choice now, if they choose that route of employment, that they be very aware that they may be taking themselves off of the fast track or even the medium track of promotion, directorship, leadership positions.
I agree with you, Karen. Actually, I've read that if you're out of sight, sometimes, sadly, you're out of mind, right? When it comes to
yes. We know the incredible importance that proximity makes to friendship. Mm-hmm. We know that neighbors tend to be greater friends than when just seeing each other makes a difference. Well, that's true at work too. That coffee, that those informal discussions matter.
So as a successful businesswoman yourself, Karen, what is some of the things that the employers can do to attract and retain employees?
Well, first of all, to be aware of what I just said, and to not let that expertise walk out the door, and to find, to notice and create opportunities for people who are choosing that hybrid route and working from home and working remotely to feel involved and included. Some of the ways that's done are through book clubs, professional book clubs, where I lead some where you don't have to read the book to come to the book club and to exchange ideas. And this is a way for people to interact with colleagues remotely and see them in a way other than, it's certainly business related and organizationally related, but it's not on a particular task. So it gives people an opportunity to mingle in different ways. Other opportunities include training programs, which bring people together and talking about issues and concerns they have, brown bag lunches. So employers had gotten away from offering a lot of training, and now training is one of the greatest conduits of bringing their staff together in meaningful ways, not just, I mean, I'm all for bowling, but I don't think the bowling and the social things can be the only way that we see one another. And so here's some ways employers can do it. I have a few other things. Employers should also offer a mix of work arrangements. So they're going to be men and women who want that fast track, that want that driven, focused type of work. But we also need to create opportunities for people who are looking to travel more, to work from different places. We shouldn't make the assumption that everybody wants to work in the same way. And people change. The way you might want to work in your 20s may not be the way you want to work in your 30s. And the way you want to work in your 30s may not be the same way you want to work in your 50s, because people's lives change. And so the more we can create adaptability and flexibility in our leaders to see that expertise and hard work is important, no matter what little box it fits in, the more successful organizations will be in keeping their top talent.
Right. Leaders understanding the needs and wants of this top talent. You know, you mentioned the book club, and actually I read that in one of your blogs, and also another one of your blogs, you mentioned that there was a word for putting your whole self and soul into the workplace.
Yeah.
Could you please tell us about that?
Certainly. I was at a restaurant. It sounds like all I do is go out to eat. But
That's okay.
We were in a restaurant in Las Vegas, and there was a huge sign up across the sign. The restaurant was called Meraki, and Meraki, Meraki, as the slide says. And it was written on the outside, but it was also written on the inside. And what that means is when you put your whole self into your work, when you can feel it and embody it. And we all know people who cook that way. And we also know people. I was standing in line days ago at a store, and the teacher behind me was just covered. Her entire cart was filled with craft projects for her classroom. And she had so much enthusiasm about which child would enjoy which part of this craft. That when we love our work and we are passionate in that way, it spills over. One of the things employers one of the things that employers can do is work hard to encourage that passion and do nothing to destroy that passion. Let me give you an example. One of the organizations I'm privileged to consult with is a bioscience organization, and they do cancer research. And they simply did, every month they put out one way in which their technology and their advances have changed somebody's life. They put it out in a newsletter. They talk about it. Sometimes they interview a patient, a recipient of their work. It has totally changed the morale. Can you imagine seeing 12 times a year how your work impacts another human?
It's wonderful. That really is. And that kind of leads me to what I was thinking about was the mission statement and vision. Would having a mission statement and a vision make a difference in terms of employee retention?
Yes and no. Actually, having a mission and vision is a wonderful way to help with retention. And it's something I do and work with companies if they don't have one, to help them develop one and to come together and create shared purpose and to write it and announce it to the world. So I'm sure you were thinking the answer to that question was going to be yes.
Yes, I was actually. I'm surprised.
But the way it can hurt is when employees read in their mission something like we treat our employees first, and yet they have a manager who walks around yelling at their employees, and everybody knows about it and nobody does anything about it. And they will literally say to a consultant like me or to anybody else who is listening, it says on the wall, it says in the handbook that employees are our number one asset. But they know about this person who makes racial statements or sexist statements or calls people an idiot out loud in meetings. And they allow this behavior to occur. So that's not true. And that actually hurts retention, not just the manager's behavior, but the fact that the company says they're one thing and then they aren't.
I see. Oh, that's
the hypocrisy can hurt retention.
Oh, I see. Okay.
You know, it's funny, as humans, we actually like when what is said is going to happen actually happens.
Oh, right. Yes, very true. You know, as businesses in transition are offering a more flexible workplace environment, though, what are the key factors that the organizations need to consider?
Well, there's not a one size fits all, but I work with organizations to try to figure out for their organization what really matters. For instance, in the healthcare field, in order to keep technicians and nurses, many hospitals have adapted a more a different workplace strategy. So they might have 2 weeks on and 2 weeks off, so that people can have longer vacations and take trips. Or they may have schedules that are many have schedules that are part-time, now can be 10 to 2, so that people can balance their home life with their work life if they're in that stage of life. Other organizations do things to appeal to the older worker, and in that way they are offering maybe more health benefits. Or
Karen, I'm sorry to interrupt. You have so much more information to tell us. How can folks get in touch with you?
Oh, I'd love for folks to get in touch with me. They can reach me through my website, Karen@KarenSnyder.com, SNYDER, or email me. I'm great about returning my emails. And they can register for my blog. And I'd love to hear from your viewers. And so thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. You've shared such important information today for women and men, actually, as well. I hope you've enjoyed meeting our guest, Karen Snyder, as much as I have enjoyed knowing her through the years. And I hope you've taken away some ways that you can think about how this changing workplace affects your career, and perhaps some things you might want to change if you haven't already. If you know a woman who has contributed to our community and would like to be a great guest for our show, please email us, or womansworldtv@AOL.com. Remember, it's a woman's world. I'm Carolyn Bruna. See you next time.